All right, so here we're going to get started building our maze. So you're going to make a copy of the maze solver document in Onshape, and this is what you're going to be turning in using a sharing link. So you go to share, link sharing, turn on link sharing, and then you'll copy that link, and that's what you're going to be submitting for your assignment. Okay, so to start with, I'm just going to show you what we have here. So starting here, this is where we're going to build the assembly for the maze solver. This is where we're going to build the maze. This is basically a part studio that shows all the parts, okay, for the maze solver. So we got a base, we have some servos, we've got these kind of mounting brackets for servos, these kind of gimbals for the servos, and then the actual maze and this bracket for attaching the maze to the linkage. Okay, and so this is what we're going to be building, and we'll do the assembly and everything. Okay, this is the individual servo bracket with a servo there. Here's the second one, or this is the that gimbal piece there. Okay, and this is the actual servo part as well. Okay, so we got all those things, and then there's a couple extra parts here that I've got. These won't be there when you make a copy of it. Okay, so let's start by making our maze. All right, so it's possible that you're doing the square maze or the circular maze or the hexagon maze, and so I'm going to start by looking at the square maze and how to set that up and show you some techniques for making your life easier as you build your maze. Okay, so we're going to start, before we even start sketching, we're going to create some variables. Okay, so let's create, here we go, variable. We're going to call this one the width. And that's 101.6 millimeters. All right, we're going to make another one called wall thickness, which is going to be 1.2 millimeters. Okay, we're going to make one called the row count, and we're going to make that to be a number instead of a length, and that row count is going to be 8 or 12 depending on which grid you chose, and I'll show you how to decide which one that is. And then the last one here is going to be called grid spacing. Grid spacing. And this is a length, and we actually have to do a calculation here. Okay, so this calculation basically is we're going to take the width, and we're going to subtract out, I believe, one row, or one wall thickness. Yeah. And this is basically going to calculate how much space between each wall. And then we're going to divide that by the row count. So let's put these in parentheses. And then we're going to divide that by our row count. Okay? And that gives us 12.55 millimeters. If we change this to be 12, then it's going to drop down to 8.36. Okay, so we'll start with 8, and then you can change it depending on the grid that you had. Well, let me just show it real quick. So we, when you have the templates, so if you use this like finer template, this would be 12 rows. And if you use this larger grid, this is 8 rows. And so you can decide based on which of these two grids you selected. Okay, so you would then update your row count here, which is then going to take care of your grid spacing. And so now the next step is to actually build the base of our maze. Okay, and so we're going to start by making a sketch. We can call this the base sketch. Okay. And it's on the top plane. We're going to draw a center point rectangle. Press the letter N. We're going to make these equally constrained using the letter E. Okay. And then we grab the letter D for dimension. And then we're going to set this to be the width. Okay. And then we're going to extrude that to a height of the wall thickness. We're going to say extrude. And we're going to set the depth to be wall thickness. Okay, so now you have just like, oops. Let's try it again. So now we have this little like rectangle there. Okay. Now what we're going to also do is we're going to build our wall on the top. So we're going to sketch for the wall on the top, and we're just going to grab an offset, click in the middle here, and set this to also be wall thickness like that. Okay, and then we're going to extrude that to a height of 6 millimeters. So we should actually probably make one more variable. We'll call it wall height. We're going to set it to be 6. I'm going to drag this up to there, and we're going to do another extrude. Set that to be our wall height. Okay, and now we have the kind of the base of our maze. There's one more thing we got to do before we start building our maze, and that is we're going to put a little box on the bottom to basically help us line it up when we attach it to the maze solver. Okay, so we're going to create a sketch on the bottom face here. We're going to draw a center point rectangle, constrain it to be equal, and we're going to set this to be 25 millimeters. Okay, and then we're going to extrude this. Let's rename these. So this is the base. Extrude, outer wall sketch, outer wall extrude, and then let's go ahead and rename this one to be mount sketch. Sketch. And then we're going to extrude that. Choose a remove. We'll extrude it by the wall thickness divided by 2. So 0.6. Okay. And we'll call this mount point extrude. Okay. So there we have now the foundation of our maze, and from here, before we start drawing our maze, I'm going to show you some techniques that we can use to really make our lives easier for us, okay? So instead of going through and just starting to sketch, we're going to start by setting up a grid for ourselves, okay? That's going to really kind of simplify the process of basically drawing this, okay? So we're going to start by making a sketch on this bottom plane, and we'll call this horizontal grid. Okay, okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing a construction line, and we want it to basically split the difference on this wall. So we got to be a little careful here. We'll hold down Shift so I don't accidentally constrain it to something I don't want to constrain it, but I do want it to be parallel there, horizontal. Okay, so I got my line, and basically I want to set the distance from the top to be the wall thickness divided by 2. So it's right there in the middle, okay? And once that's done, if we want to fully constrain this, let's go ahead and set this to be, you know, like 4 or something. There you go. So that's fully constrained. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a linear pattern of this line, and it wants to go this horizontal direction, so we're just going to click 1 there and click that line to put it down, and then we're going to set this to be the row count plus 1. Okay, and so now we got all those lines there, and then we're going to set the spacing to be the grid spacing, just like that. Okay. So now we got our grid spacing, just like that, and we want to also go with the vertical direction. Okay, so we're going to make a vertical grid as well, and so let's make a new sketch. I want to put it not on there, but on the bottom face again, and we'll call this vertical, vertical grid. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, in our vertical grid, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to draw a construction line. Okay, we're going to set the distance from here to there to be the wall thickness divided by 2. Okay, and I'm actually going to take this and make it equal to that in length. Okay. All right, and so I'm going to set a distance here just so it's fully constrained as well. Okay, so we'll do now another linear pattern, starting with here, and we want to go grid, row count +1, and then we're going to set this to be grid spacing. Okay. And so now we've got that done. So we've got our 2 grids, right, in our maze. And so it'd be helpful to be able to hide them and stuff like that. But what we're going to do now is, now we've got our grids built, we can start drawing our maze. Okay, and essentially what we're going to do to draw this is we're just going to trace along the grid. So I'm going to hide these for a second, make a new sketch on that base plane. And we'll call this the maze sketch. Okay. And so I'm going to show those again. And it can be helpful to hide them as you go. But now what we're going to do is we're going to, in our maze sketch, we're going to basically just draw out our maze that we had traced. Okay. Or that you had already planned. So you just draw it out as you have it. And then another thing, if you were doing the larger grid, you would come here, make sure your row count is set to 12 instead of 8. And then you can see it updates it right there for you. Okay, so we'll undo that. We're going to come back to here, and we're going to just draw our maze, however we planned it. You can also click and drag. Just like that. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do too much here, so I'm not going to do the whole maze, but you get the idea. And so from here, once this is done, here's what the next technique is. Here's the next tool. So we're going to click the check mark. I'm going to hide these guys, and I'll hide this too. And what I want to do is I want to extrude all those lines. So I'm going to go to extrude, but instead of extruding something solid, I'm going to extrude surfaces. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to go through and extrude all these surfaces. Now, unfortunately, you can't extrude them all at once. So whenever you have like a T, whenever they kind of tee off like this, it doesn't like that. So I have to get rid of that one. Okay, and then so I can kind of do these parts. I don't have to come back and do that as a separate extrude. Okay, but I want to set the depth of this extrude to be the wall height. Okay, just like that. And I can show my maze again here. And then I'm going to come back and do a second extrude to clean up all the ones I missed on the first one. So let me come in and grab this guy. I gotta make my sketch visible again. Grab that one. Again, set it to be not wall thickness, wall height. Okay, so we got that. Now the next step, and this is where we can take advantage of some of these other tools that we have. We're going to use this thicken tool. We're going to go through and we're going to select all of our surfaces. Okay, and we're going to choose add. Alright, and we're going to choose merge with all. And then here where we set the thickness, what we're going to do is we're going to set thickness 1 to be wall thickness divided by 2. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say wall thickness divided by 2. Okay. And you could see now we have walls there. We chose to add them and merge it with the maze. And there we got our maze built. And I can come back in and add the holes in it and everything like that. Okay, and so here's how we build the maze. If you're doing the circular or the hexagon maze, I'll show you how to set up those grids now. Okay, so if we want to instead do the hexagon maze, we can kind of take, basically, we don't necessarily have to get rid of all this. Maybe we should. So I'm going to come back all the way to here. Let's go to actually here. Okay, so I'm going to delete all these things. And so we've got our width, we've got our wall thickness, we've got our row count, we've got our grid spacing. And so I think for this one, I'm going to set this to be 6. And then I think I did a different calculation here for the row spacing. So this is for the hexagon. So we have, let's change the width to be, instead of calling it width, let's call it maze diameter. Okay. And then we got the wall thickness. I'm going to set the row count to 6. And the grid spacing calculation is going to be the maze diameter. I think I just set this. So we're going to set this to be 8.367. No, it's going to be maze diameter minus the wall thickness divided by the row count, and then we're going to divide it by 2 because it's going across. Okay? And so now from here, we're going to, so we got this new calculation for our grid spacing. Okay? And then our base sketch, we're going to delete this guy and make a hexagon. And so we're going to use our inscribe polygon tool, draw ourselves a hexagon. Okay, with the 6 sides. And then when I set the dimension of it, the diameter rather, oh, interesting. So when I did this before, I'm looking back at the previous one I did. I guess I just set this. So let's set this to be about 136. Okay, I don't know why I selected that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just put a random number in there. So we'll start with that and we'll change it if we need to. So I want to extrude that. We're going to choose this. Okay. Outer wall sketch. We're going to choose that as a base. Delete that. Use our offset tool. Set this to be the wall thickness. Okay. Fix that extrude. Okay. Mount point sketch. I'm going to put it on the bottom here. And we're going to merge apart with it. Okay, so now we've got our hexagon shape. We're going to build our grid. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start again from the middle of that wall. Call this grid 1. Okay. And we're going to make an inscribe polygon. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to do 6 of them. I want this to be parallel, so I'm doing the letter B to go parallel. And I'm going to set this distance to be the wall thickness divided by 2. Okay? And then from there, we're going to do, I wonder if I can do a linear pattern here. I don't know if I can. Let's see. No, I don't think I can. So I'm just gonna, I think maybe I can, but I'm not gonna try to figure out how to do it right now. So we're gonna do another one. And another one. And we'll just keep drawing these guys. Make sure there's 6 walls. Okay. So now I'm going to set all these to be parallel. Like that. And now I'm going to hide this. And I'm going to set this distance to be the grid spacing. Grid spacing. Just like that. And then we can, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4. So we probably do 2 more here in the middle. Rows if you want. Let's look at what we had here. We had in the drawing, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could probably go like this. Change that row count to be 4. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Pretty comfortable what we have here. Okay. And so I changed that row count to 4. Let's now go ahead and end that sketch. Oh, we had made it, but we got rid of it. So let's get rid of this one. Delete. Call this one grid 1. And now we're going to make grid 2. Okay. And so let's make grid 2. Call this grid 2. Alright, and now I'm going to draw a line starting from this corner all the way to that corner. Okay. And now I'm going to do a circular pattern. And my instance count is going to be 24. Okay? And now I've got this grid and I can draw my maze. So I'll make a new sketch on the surface here. We'll call this the maze. And now I can reference that grid when I draw the maze. So for example, I don't really want to lock stuff to it. Let's say I'm going to connect that to here. You can use that coincident constraint to lock things together. Maybe we need to hide this. There we go. Interesting that it doesn't want to lock to these things. You know, maybe what I need to do is this. Let's put grid 2. Instead of on the top plane, let's put it on that face. And let's also do that with this one. There we go. And so now, when I reference these, yep, it'll allow me to select them. So, like that. Okay, and so now you can start building out, and then the same techniques apply. So the one thing to be careful about when we get towards the middle here, let's see, this distance is 4.6. If we want the ball to go through, it needs to be at least probably 8 millimeters there when the walls are extruded. So on those that inner opening, you just got to be a little bit careful. Okay, and so that's the hexagon grid. And so now I'll go ahead and show the how to do this circular grid. So we're going to kind of come back, and really actually we can just about reuse almost everything here. But let's go ahead to our base sketch, and let me see what I use for the diameter of the circle. Okay, so I'm going to go to my base sketch, and I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to draw a circle here. And I'm going to set that to be the maze diameter. And this one we might want to make a little bit bigger, but okay. And then I'm going to extrude that. Use my outer wall sketch. With the offset. We'll extrude our outer wall. And merge with this. I just click merge with all. Make sure it's going up though. There we go. For mount point sketch on the base here. And set that to also merge with all. Okay, so now I make our grids on this bottom face. And this is the one we're going to change. This other one, we don't need to change. But also on that bottom face. We'll just make this into be vertical. Or not. Okay, so we got that done. Let's fix this grid now. So instead of doing that, we're going to do this. So I think we just need to draw those circles. So we're going to draw a circle. We'll start with, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see to match the circle that I had on the template. So we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. Okay. So I gotta make this a little bit bigger then. I'll make this to be like 120. Okay, we'll start with that and see how we do. Okay, so that's grid 1 here. And we're just going to do one circle. We'll go dimension from here to here. Is going to be wall thickness over 2. And then all my other ones got really small. So I'm going to say from here to here will be grid spacing. Until I get all these dimensioned. Okay. And so that's 1, 2, 3 rows. I get all those? Yeah. Okay, so we draw a few more of these. And I think I'm going to delete that inner row because I think it's too small. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have to make this guy even a little bigger. So let's go 130. And set the row count to be 8. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's set this to be 9, I guess. Okay. 7.156. That's too small. Oh, let's go here. Set that to be 140. And this to be 8. There we go. Okay, that should be good. So now, coming back to here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five, 6, 7. So we need one more here. Yeah. And I'm just gonna skip that middle circle. Okay? And so now we've got our grid here. And as you draw your maze, make sure this maze is on that bottom face. As we draw that maze and we're on that grid, we've got to be careful again that we don't run into openings that are too small. And so some tricks for following along those curved lines is we can use the tangent arc. Or let's go to the center point arc. So like that. And basically want the center to be right in the middle. And so we want to take this, you draw that arc, and we want to attach that center point to the middle like that. Okay? And you can trace it down like here. Okay, and so let's say we're drawing this. Let's do another arc here. Maybe from like here to there. And again, we'll attach this to the middle. Okay, so we got these grid points here. And you just got to check right here that that spacing is big enough. And so that's 4.529. That's not big enough for the ball. And so you'll have to maybe trim this a little bit or move it so we can get rid of this coincident constraint and move it to, or redraw this arc so that we have enough room there for the ball to fit through. And so now between here and here is about 8.9 millimeters, which is sufficient. And so this is how you go about doing that circular grid.